I was thinking about, I guess, some concepts related to, well, you know what? It seems like when I don't record my thoughts, like on a daily basis, or when I stop speaking, I procrastinate more. Like in my, well, I don't, maybe I shouldn't say procrastinate more, but I speaking my mind becomes less fluid and clear the longer I go from, well, like the longer I stop. You know what? Okay, let me start over. I remembered when I was in my early 20s, I used to uh, have this type of artwork from this artist named Alex Gray. I didn't have like pictures in I didn't have like pictures in frames, but I did, however, have like a really big book, and well, I had a really big book of his pictures, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I may have gone to an exhibit once, maybe, I don't know. But I don't really remember doing that with any other artist. So I find it very interesting. Well, the image that you see is one of his. He makes a lot of, he draws a lot of images like this. And I found myself thinking about his images today. And I remembered that I used to be a fan of his work. So I'm questioning why. Why am I a fan of his work? And I believe it's because what he depicts seems to be, well, it's not just anatomy, but well, it's not just anatomy of the human body, but I guess you could say like anatomy of his idea of spirit and thoughts, which are also a part of the physical anatomy, as if it were like a completion or a more complete uh, diagram of the human body. Now, he has a lot of images like this, similar to this one, but this is probably one of his more this may be like one of people's favorites. It's probably maybe one of my favorites, if not my favorite. So he's showing a what looks to be a halo or type of halo coming from the pituitary gland area, which is supposed to excrete uh, DMT, which to some is believed to be the spirit molecule. Like it's the bridge, like as if it's the biological bridge. Like DMT is responsible for like creating a biological, like a half biological, well, how do I describe it? Like a biological slash spiritual bridge. Like it combines the two. Like that's what that molecule does based on some people's experiences. There was a cover, there was a book I read called DMT, the Spirit Molecule, and I believe they used this image on the cover of their book. And they also went into quite a well. That book was actually a pretty interesting book. It not only discussed DMT as far as it being taken, like it being like I think injected, like it being either injected or smoked, but they made a case that the body produces DMT naturally, and that certain states of consciousness or higher, let's say higher states of consciousness, trigger the pituitary gland to excrete DMT, which connects the human body, well, which connects the person to the spirit or to the spirit realm. So, like a person who meditates, or people who are meditators, or certain types of meditators, would also be able to maybe directly or indirectly start producing DMT, will start triggering their pituitary gland to excrete DMT, which will start opening up their senses and their psyche to what's around them, becoming more sensitive. I know from personal experiences that when I meditate, or when I have meditated for years, I can feel activity going on in the center of my skull. In some cases, like it feels, because I can hear it. It has a sound and it has a sensation, and it it's almost as if it reminds me of like an like minus the cold or minus the temperature. What it what occurs when an ice cube melts? Like think of an ice cube making that cracking noise and melting, but minus the temperature. That's the sensation that I get in the center of my skull. And I've gotten this off and on in my life. And it's usually when I'm thinking about when I feel like I'm making spiritual or psychological breakthroughs, like I'm leveling up, like I'm growing as a being, and I can feel it. That's when it usually happens. I remember this, just talking about this triggered a memory that I had when I had an LA Fitness membership. I don't think they're in existence anymore. LA Fitness? Are they? Anyway, I had a membership at this gym maybe like 15 years ago, 20 years ago, and like 15 years ago? About 15 years ago, I had a membership in the gym, and I'm in the pool jacuzzi area just sitting down, and I was talking to this guy about meditation. We were talking about meditation and stuff like that, and he told me that he was a jazz musician. And I'll get to why this matters. But I was telling him about how I could at times feel like a type of vortex, almost as if I could, like I could feel some type of vortex coming from the center of my skull. And I could, in some cases, see a vortex at that time. And what what I find very interesting is that um, first of all, how would I describe vortex? Best way I can describe it is imagine like bubbling, like how did I describe it? Imagine like standing over a pot of boiling water and watching it bubble, and the shapes that are made when it bubbles. Now, take away the water and place uh, those bubbling. Take away the water and replace it with smoke, or air, or vapor, and imagine that in front of you. Anyway, that's what I mean by a vortex. That's the bit. That's the closest I can describe, like how it looks. Anyway, when I told him this, he was not surprised. He was not surprised at all because he told me that he could feel a vortex or like a cone or coning type sensation coming from his stomach, which is um, I think that's supposed to be somewhere in the stomach area, I believe. But anyway, that's supposed to be near, I believe, like what some people consider like the heart chakra. But I know based on personal experiences that I know for sure that there are energy centers in the body because I felt them. And I believe most people have felt them, they just didn't know how to describe them. I'll give you some examples, like that butterfly in your stomach feeling that you ever had when you maybe felt a little shy when you were attracted to somebody. Like when you were really just like feeling somebody in that way, like in a romantic way. That butterfly in the stomach feeling, I mean, what is that if not the heart chakra? 'Cause I'm pretty sure there's not a butterfly organ, or there's no, that's not an organ. That's not a physical organ feeling that way, that butterflies in the stomach. That's your heart chakra, in my opinion. What else could it be producing that butterfly in the stomach feeling? Some of you have never felt that. I'm sorry if you have never felt that, but um, or you can sometimes feel it when you're just when I guess you see something that might feel uh, very beautiful, or it could be a moment, a very beautiful moment, maybe a moment that felt perfect, and you felt like you just wanted to be like really one with the moment, or like you were one with the moment. You were connected with everything around you, and you just wanted to be as more connected to everything around you as possible because it was so beautiful. These feelings can be felt if you really pay attention to your feelings and your emotions. You can feel these things, different parts of your body. Usually, um, I mean, you can sometimes get. I felt goosebumps from these feelings, or what people call goosebumps. Usually, these emotions, the more positive emotions, are they produce sensations, in my opinion, which are in the torso. But the more dis- but the well, you know what? That's kind of a long story. I'll say this: um, like the more negative emotions, from what I understand, based on it being written in my own experiences, are felt like in the crotch area. Like you have to be very careful about what you're feeling. and how you use that energy. But that's an energy source that people are not tapping into. It's more than, it's much more than people think. I mean, think about it, especially if you're a man. I mean, you're producing, I don't know about the female anatomy enough to talk about it, because I haven't, been in a woman's body, or I guess has, anyway. Um, from the perspective of a man, you're producing life down there. You got stuff down there that produces life. And I feel like this is a part of, this might go into what some people may call conspiracy, but I believe it. I believe that there's a very strong possibility that negative or evil, some people may say satanic forces, are pushing and motivating man to treat his bodily fluids as if they were just something for fun, or something for just something that's there as a biological function, and that's it. Something to make life with. So because a lot of men out here will have taken the bait, or have bought into the concepts of man, mainly the concepts that man should, like, the best thing that men can do is to focus on using their privates like a playground. We are not reaching higher states of existence, which I believe we can reach based on so many different religious writings, where, the reason why I bring up religion, this is where religion comes in. This is where religion is good. Before I go into why religion can be good, I'll go into how religion can be bad. Religion can be bad, and is bad, in my opinion, when people are trapped in dogma, and are influenced not to think, and influenced not to grow, just obey. Don't get stronger as a being. Don't try to evolve as a being. Just obey. Just do as I say. Because somebody said they were God, or somebody said they were the spokesperson of God, or messenger of God. So now all these people out here are putting their focus and their energy and their hopes into men that are supposed to be, men and women who are supposed to be messengers of God, who are so high up on a pedestal that you can't even begin to think that you could ever reach their levels of knowledge and insight, because you're like some type of uh, caveman or woman in comparison to them. So don't even try. That's the negative of religion, in my opinion. The positive of religion, in my opinion, is the total opposite. When religion is talking about, when religion is motivating people to move in the opposite direction, focus on spiritual growth and evolution, growing as a being, figuring out answers, realizing that they have possibly unlimited potential. And you can find this in many religions. You know, the Bible said something about if ye had the faith of a mustard seed, ye could move mountains. Jesus said to, I'm paraphrasing, by the way. I think I'd like to start becoming better at repeating things verbatim. But anyway, Jesus said something like, uh, you will do greater works than me. Which I believe is that concept gets misunderstood, or it's debatable among Christians what that means. But at the very least, what I believe we should take from it is to not have limited ideas of what we can accomplish, and to have more faith in ourselves and our potential. Don't get me started on a particular. I'm sorry. I gotta go here. I find it interesting how in the King James version there's a verse in there that specifically says, "Call no man father." I wonder what the. I wonder who they specifically had in mind, or what types of men they specifically had in mind when they said, "Call no man father," and why. Now I'll leave that one alone for now. Anyway, uh, yes, in so many of these different religions, there were men who, you know what, I feel led to talk about another topic, which is somewhat related. The idea of, well, I remember reading a book. I guess it was based on the teachings of, I guess he was considered a Zen master. His name was Doggin. And one of the most amazing books I ever read. And I was so amazed that, I mean, the first thing, when I grabbed this particular book, I think it was called like The Essential Teachings of Zen Master Dogen or something like that. I forgot who wrote it or who translated it, who compiled it. Sorry about that, but what I was so amazed by in this book, and I'd like to get it again, what I was so amazed by in this book was that I could, for once, I could flip through a book. Well, I won't say for once, but what I found so amazing was that I could flip to any page. When I first grabbed the book, I could flip to any page and have no idea what they were talking about. Couldn't piece it together. It was that heavy. And I considered myself pretty knowledgeable at that time, and it wasn't because they were using big words. It was the concepts. So anyway, one concept that I thought was very interesting was the concept of, uh, well, according to the book, there are great miracles and there are lesser miracles. Well, that was the topic: great miracles and greater miracles and lesser miracles. And according to the book, or according to the teachings of Dogen, according to the translations, he believed that greater miracles, he believed that lesser miracles were like people flying in the sky, or maybe turning water into wine, or uh, do all types of theatrics or whatever, like, like this X-Men type stuff. I don't want to. Anyway, science fiction-y stuff. He believed that those were lesser miracles, stuff that seemed like fairy tales or seemed impossible for people to do. He believed those were lesser miracles, and what he considered greater miracles are the daily things that we take for granted, that we do, that all of us can do so easily. Like being able to take a breath in and out. Like that in itself is a miracle. Not just that we are able to take a breath in and out and live and exist, but so many things are doing that. So many beings or entities are out here. Well, so many beings and entities exist that are capable of doing that. So he believed that the greater miracle or greater miracles were things that seemed ordinary, that people just didn't give enough credit to. And in a sense, I guess you could say I agree. When you think about the numbers game, if you look at it from the perspective of numbers, I guess it would be greater. And when you think about it, maybe from the perspective of power and influence, maybe it would be greater. So where I'm going is, I think what got me what started me thinking about this was I was watching the Ten Commandments. Not all of it. I missed like the first 30 minutes. Where I started was, I guess, where Moses, or the Moses. Well, by the way, the Ten Commandments, starring Charlton Heston and Yul Brynner and some other people. That one. Um, I started from where, I guess, the Moses character, Charlton Heston, is, I guess he was accused of possibly being a traitor or working against his father. And he ended up pleasing his father. Well, I'm sorry to give anything away. I'm sorry about that. Um, anyway, that's where I started. Sorry about that. I hate giving stuff away. Anyway, that's where I started from. But anyway, in the movie, um, there are things in the movie I liked and things in the movie I did not like. And one good thing about the movie is it made me more interested in reading up on Moses and what the Bible said, or how the Bible describes what occurred. Usually with a movie, I don't care to. I mean, I care to like read the book or anything like that, but in this case, it's very different. Very, very different. But one thing I noticed in the movie that I did not like, that I don't feel gets talked about a lot, is now those people were enslaved apparently for 400 years, and they were waiting for for one person to be so significant that, or one person to have so much power that that one person would just lead them out, will just lead them to a better life. We'll put it that way. Now, wouldn't it have been better if maybe if more individual people just had it in their heads that maybe, just maybe, they could be the ones to get their people out of bondage? Or if maybe they just started moving in that direction, as opposed to just hoping and waiting for a savior. And that reminds me of why, well, this concept also reminds me of a major problem I have with Christians, or with people who call themselves Christians. Too many Christians are out here hoping and planning and praying for a savior, as opposed to working on saving themselves or working on being the Savior or being Savior-like, at the very least, working on being Savior-like. Why not work on being Savior-like as opposed to hoping for a Savior? Wouldn't Jesus want you to be trying to become more Savior-like? Imagine what good the average person can do if they were out here trying to become Savior-like, as opposed to hoping and waiting and praying for salvation or a Savior. So back to greater miracles and lesser miracles. Wouldn't the greater miracle be if individuals started moving in the direction? Well, if individuals started thinking to themselves, you know what? Maybe, well, whether Jesus comes or whether a Savior comes or not, I'm going to move in the direction of Saviorhood for the betterment of myself, but humanity. By Saviorhood, all I mean is just having a great heart and a great head on your shoulders, having great intention, having great purpose for humanity. That's what I mean. I don't mean hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people walking around trying to convince people that they're God. I'm not talking about that foolishness. Don't get me started on that. That ego-driven, anyway. Well, you know what? I'll complete it. It's ego-driven, and and sadly, um, it's hard to see. Ego can be very, very hard to see. All that requires you to not see ego is just to not want to, because ego is painful. Ego can be painful. Seeing the negative sides of ourselves can be painful. So what we can do is pretend like we don't see those things, or act as if those things about us are not very bad. And you can get good at this. And this is what is scary. You can get good at it. You can just get very strong in not seeing what you don't want to see. And that's like the hardest thing to convince somebody of, is to look into themselves so that they can potentially find all types of skeletons in their closet, in their psychological and spiritual closets, which they were unaware of. Because initially that would be a very painful experience, a very unpleasant experience. But if you understand anything about growth, in my opinion, I believe you'll know, and you'll know that is overall for the greater good, that you see whatever ugliness may be inside of you, so that you won't be building on a shallow foundation. So that you won't be, so that you can build on a strong foundation. The same way you want to build your, if you had a life savings, if you had money to build a house, and you had to spend it all, I think you'd be very careful, or you tried to be the most careful with how you spent that money, where you built that house, what type of environment are you building your house around? How's the sand? How's the soil? What are the resources nearby? All that stuff. You try to take all these things into consideration, because for after all, it's all the money you have. But as it relates to our psyches and our individual lives, our personas, that we're building, we don't seem to want to survey or inspect our uh, our own well, maybe I'm thinking too much, but I think you get what I'm saying. We don't want to take the time to see what type of foundation we're building our lives on. See what type of foundation we're uh yeah. I don't know how else to say it. We're trying to build lives for ourselves. So shouldn't we be eager and open to see any potential weaknesses in ourselves, so that we don't uh, build on mistakes which may hurt us in the future? Isn't this like building a home in an environment that might possibly have like landmines, or contaminated soil, or too close to the ocean and not protected, to where uh, maybe the foundation is weak, and the house may fall into the ocean, or maybe waves might erode, or waves are constantly eroding the dirt under the house and all that type of stuff. You get what I mean. But this is why we cannot be, or we should not be afraid of looking into ourselves, because the greater fear should be you fearing what will happen if you don't. Because if you can see the problem, you can fix it. If we can see problems in ourselves, we can fix it. Or we can possibly fix them. before they become bigger problems. But that takes honesty, that takes clarity, that takes an understanding of the benefit of truth. Anyway, um, what time is it? So back to this image. I guess I was thinking about this image because I think I was just imagining like what would be a good representation of how individuals should see themselves in comparison to the reality around them, and I feel like this is a pretty good image. I think it's one of the best images for that. That we are not just uh, that we have proven ourselves not to just be uh, pieces of flesh walking around, but there is something in that flesh. There's something greater. There can be something greater, but we must be aware of it. We must strengthen it. We must harness it.